Hello there, my name is Linda and I'm going to be talking about classic literature. So last year I only read a few classics. As far as classic literature goes, I did read some other books that were old, but I think they were nonfiction. But just speaking about the fiction right now, I have a list on my blog of classic books. It was originally created by the College Board, which they don't even have it on their website anymore. I think I'm the only one that still has a copy of that list. I think their intention was to say that if somebody wants to go to college, they should be reading these books. And I haven't read all of them. I mean, there's 100 books on the list, and I've read less than 50. True confession. So, anyhow, I want to read more classics this coming year. And I looked through my list of books that I read last year, and I have read only 3 books from last year that I could call classics. So um, the first one that I read was in March, I believe. I read Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and that was not on my list of classics, but a lot of people consider it a classic. It was, I think, published around 1938. I liked that book. I gave it 5 stars because I liked the psychological nature of what was going on in the life of the protagonist. And then a few months later, I read a terrible, terrible book that was on that list, All Quiet on the Western Front. A lot of people like that book. They say, oh, it's the greatest anti-war novel ever written. Surely, if you read it, you won't want to go to war because it had scenes of war, carnage, mayhem. It was horrible. There were just TMI in there. TMI means too much information, things I would not like to hear about or read about. It was well written, true, but I did not like it. I gave it 3 stars. 3 stars only because it was well written. I mean, there's no doubt he was a talented writer, but I did not like the topic at all. And then the third classic that I read was Evelina by Frances Burney. I was doing a reading challenge that required me to read a book that was written by a contemporary of Jane Austen, and I found out that Jane Austen actually read this book, Evelina, and she enjoyed it. I have a feeling that my camera is doing weird things. Okay, first of all, I'm using my phone and I think it refocuses at times, and it's possible that my trailer shakes a little. I live in a travel trailer still, so I'm sorry if there's a problem with the video quality here. I'm doing my best, I think. At least I'm getting some videos done this year. So this coming year is 2023, and I want to read more classics. So I went back to my list on my blog, the list of the College Board, that they don't even publish on their website anymore. And I used a random number generator to help me decide which books I was going to read this year. And basically, if it was a book that I had already read, then I just ignored that result and continued on with the random number generator until I got a list of 10 books I haven't read yet, which was not hard to do. I mean, like I said, over 50 of them I haven't read. So the first one on my list for this year that I wanted to read is Middlemarch. And it is 600 pages. One website said it was 900, but I think it's more like 600. It's by George Eliot, and I am reading that right now in January 2023. I'm actually doing a buddy read with Faith of Faith in Books, and I think that is helping me a lot because I'm actually getting through this long novel. I seem to not like to read long novels. I kind of avoid the March of the Mammoths or whatever it's called in March. I did that one year with Lonesome Dove, which is a very long novel, but I don't like to put that much pressure on me, and that's why I'm not going to college again. I don't like to be stressed. I've had enough stress in my life, especially these past few years have been kind of strange. So Anyhow, Middlemarch is a nice long book, and Faith is helping me get through it. Thank you, Faith. And uh, so next month, I want to read North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell, which is another very long novel. Not quite as long as Middlemarch, however. And I want to read it because I've heard so much about Elizabeth Gaskell, but that's a big hole in my education. I have never read anything that she wrote. So hopefully this coming month, February, I will start reading that, and maybe I'll get all the way through it. Now, the third book that I picked these with a random number generator. The third one I would not have picked, but it was on the list. It's Swans Way by Marcel Proust. And I've never read anything by Proust, and I'm not sure that I want to, but it's on my list, and I'm going to give it a try. The fourth one on my list for this coming year is Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. And I've never read anything by him either. I know that there were some problems with this book when it was first published, that there was a court case regarding it being obscene. So I might not get along too well with this book because I don't like obscene literature, and I have found a few others on this list that I considered obscene and was not happy with. Believe it or not, there are classics that are obscene. And okay, so I'm going to give Madame Bovary a try, and we'll see if I love it or hate it. The next one that I picked with my random number generator is An American Tragedy by Theodore Dreiser. I know nothing about An American Tragedy. There have been a lot of American tragedies, but this is the book, and I don't know when I'll get around to reading it, but it's on my list. Okay, the next one is The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. Now, I checked this book out of the library back in the 1990s sometime back then. I remember where I was when I was trying to read it, and I didn't get very far before I gave up. And I know a lot of people read this and give up rather early on. So what I have now is an audiobook, and I got it from audible.com. It was on their list of books that they give away free to people who have subscriptions there. And I've read maybe 3 chapters into it now, and I'm actually enjoying the book. So maybe I'll get through it this time. The Turn of the Screw, I really should put that on my list of books at Goodreads. I've kind of been hiding it from you. But I will put that on my list of books that I'm currently reading. I don't feel any need to get through it this month. I will probably just read it one chapter at a time until it's done, whenever that may be. Okay, the next book that I picked with my random number generator is The Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, another book I know nothing about. Next, there's Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, another book that I have tried to read in the past, and I don't know, there's something about that book that just really distresses me, and I quit reading it every time I start. So I'm hoping that this year I will get through that book. I have an audiobook copy, and I've had it for years and years at this point. A lot of times it helps if I have both an audiobook and a Kindle edition, so I can follow along in Kindle as I listen to the audio. I really like that experience for reading. They call it immersion reading, and that's actually working with Middlemarch for me this month, and I will probably do that with some of these other books as well. The next one on my list is Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray. I've heard a lot about it, but I've never read it, so hopefully I'll read that this year. Then the next one is really kind of like a bad idea for me, but it ended up being picked by the random number generator, and this has happened to me before. Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes. I tried to read that years ago. I had a nice paperback copy of Don Quixote, a recommended translation, And I no longer have that book for some reason. I don't know if it was a fire or I gave it away. I don't know. So, Don Quixote, I got about 300 pages into it. It's an 800-page book. And I never read the last 500 because the first 300 pages were so stupid and repetitive, I couldn't stand it. So I am going to give it another try. Maybe this time I'll like it a lot better. Who knows? And the last one on my list that is a classic to read in 2023 is The Light of the Western Stars by Zane Grey. I have kind of ignored Zane Grey all my life. My grandparents had a lot of Zane Grey books, and when they passed away, they got transported to my childhood home. And I saw this beautiful box of antique Zane Grey books. There were probably first editions in there. I don't know what happened to that box of books, but I never read any of them. And uh, I know he's considered a bit racist, and I kind of don't want to read racist literature, but I would like to read a Zane Grey book and find out whether or not I think he's a racist. For sure. Maybe he's not. Maybe I'm just misjudging him because of something somebody else said. I should be careful of doing that. So anyhow, Light of the Western Stars by Zane Grey is on my list of classics to read this year. And that's it. All the books that I'm planning to read that are classics as far as fiction goes. And so I think it's important to read classics, mainly because they have stood the test of time. Many people in the past have said these are good books to read. And so I like to expand my understanding of the world's literature, and I'll continue to read classics so long as I can.